I want to thank Lee Cockerell for speaking with the class today. Lee is the retired Senior Vice President of Walt Disney World Operations. And he's going to talk to us today about his experiences with the company, his experiences creating the entertainment magic that we've talked about in class for the consumers. So we will give it over to Lee and let him tell his story. Thank you very much, Lee.
Yeah, sure, Cody. Good to be with you, and hello to the students. I just a little bit about me. I grew up in Oklahoma, on a little farm. Kind of in a dysfunctional family. I tell people I ended up, my mother's fourth husband had money, so I got to go to college, but I forgot to go to class, so I flunked out after 2 years. Went in the Army back in 1964, and when I got out of the Army, I met a fellow there, and we went off to Washington, D.C. to get a job. I got a job at the Washington Hilton Hotel as a banquet server. That's the hotel where John Hinckley shot President Reagan back in the 80s when he was coming out of the hotel after a meeting. And so I started there as a waiter. I didn't know anything, never been anywhere, never even been in a hotel that I could recall. And I was lucky. I had somebody take me by the hand and teach me the business. A fellow that was a professional. He liked me, I guess, and he showed me how to do everything. And I tried to become the best little waiter they ever had. And after a while, about 1.5 years, I got promoted into a management training program. And I did that for another year. And then I got transferred to Chicago, to the Conrad Hilton Chicago Hotel. And my wife and we got married. We had a baby. I worked there for about 1.5 years. Then I got promoted to go to the Waldorf Astoria in New York City as in charge of the accounting for food and beverage. And I stayed there for 3 years. Then I moved on up to the Tarrytown Hilton as assistant manager of the hotel. Then I went to Los Angeles Hilton as the director of food and beverage operations. Stayed there with Hilton a total of 8 years. Then I went to Marriott for 17 years, focused on food and beverage, tried to become an expert in that business, and had a great career there, became the vice president of food and beverage for Marriott. And I was the general manager for a Marriott hotel. And then I got recruited in 1990 to join Disney and go to France because they wanted somebody that had food and beverage knowledge. So it paid off becoming an expert, I guess, in something. And I went there. I opened all the restaurants, hired a couple of hundred chefs and restaurant managers. And then I became in charge of all the hotels in Paris. And then after 3 years, I went back to Orlando. They made me in charge of the hotel division. And a couple of years after that, I got promoted to be in charge of all operations at Walt Disney World. I did that for 10 years. And then I retired, and I have a little business now. I go speak. I give seminars. I give leadership lessons. I have a website. I have a podcast. It's called Creating Disney Magic. It's on every Tuesday. It's 15 minutes long about leadership, management, and customer service. And I really travel all over the world now. People want to hear about Disney. They want to hear about how we did it, how we do our work, how we get the kind of results we get there. And I like talking about it because, frankly, it's pretty simple. And people say, well, what did you focus on when you were at Disney? And I said, well, the main thing I focused on is none of the technical stuff, because I hired great people to do that. Engineering, food and beverage, security, transportation, retail. People said, well, what'd you do if you had all these people? And I said, well, I focused on 3 things. And I would tell your students that they ought to really think about how they spend their time. This may be one of the most important things they do in their life, how you spend your time at work, at home, where you spend it, where you don't spend it, where you should spend it, and why you're not spending it in the right places. And so my first place I spent my time at Disney was making sure we're hiring the right people. I was involved in all those systems to make sure that we were interviewing properly, we were selecting the right people, and getting the right people into the company. Second place I spent my time was training, making sure everybody got trained, and that we had clear expectations for performance, and that there was no misunderstandings about what it is to work for a company like Disney. Clarity of expectations, I would say, is probably one of the most important things people can learn to do. Don't have any misunderstandings. When somebody leaves you, tell them exactly like your mother, you know. Mothers are always very clear. And and so I learned a lot about being more clear and training people and making sure they knew exactly what to do. That's why when you go to Disney, you pretty much everybody knows what they're doing. We're very focused on hiring the right people and training them right. And then the last thing, I focused on the culture and the environment of making sure that we were treating people right, that we people wake up in the morning, want to come to work, not have to come, and a place where everybody matters and they know they matter, and make sure you're telling them they matter and giving people appreciation, recognition, and encouragement. And so that kind of boiled down to, if anybody listening, you know, if you wanted one system, it's hire them right, train them right, and treat them right. If you do those three things in any business, you're going to have a major advantage over your competitor, because a lot of people don't hire the right people. Second, they don't deal with people who aren't performing. They don't get rid of them. They let them stay. They don't train them thoroughly and don't clarify what they mean by training, not only in the technical skills, but also in your behavior, how you treat people, how you speak to people, your attitude, flexibility. As your mother said, don't have that look on your face when you're not happy. And then I'm not sure everybody treats everybody like they should, because everybody is important, especially in the food business, the hotel business, the hospitality business. Those are the people that come in contact with the customer, not the management so much. And I always told people, your people are your brand, literally. When I think about a company or a place, it's usually where I check in at the front desk, or the housekeeper, or I don't usually see the general manager. I leave that place. If it's clean, it's friendly, it's nice, people treat you right, that becomes the reputation. So a lot of people don't realize their people are really their brand. While it's nice to have Marriott on the roof, or Holiday Inn, or Hyatt, the real bottom line is it's who you hired in those buildings. And we all have a favorite Marriott and not a favorite Marriott, a favorite Holiday Inn and one is not so favorite. And so it really is the people. And I always tell people, don't misunderstand that it's probably the most important thing you do in your life if you own a hotel, run a business, is hire the right people. Really get that right. Hire people with a good attitude. Don't hire people and try to make their attitude good. You know, it's somebody said, don't hire people and try to make them nice. Make sure you hire nice people, and you got to really be careful about that. And when you're clear with people before you hire them, they can decide if they really want to work for you or not. When they hear what your expectations are, they can stay or go, and that's good. So there's no misunderstanding. So those three things were really important to focus on. The other thing I focus on a lot with Disney is making sure everybody knew what they had to do to be successful and to get ahead. Competency. You got to be competent. If you're a waiter, you know what you're doing. If you're a chef, you got to be able to cook, and you got to be able to cook for 1,000 people, and get the people to cook, not just cook yourself. And whatever it is in life, technical competency is a big one. You should get better at it every day, every year. So this time next year, everybody that wants to be whatever they want to be ought to make sure they're a lot better than they were when the year started. And that may mean going to seminars. It may mean going to trade shows. It may mean reading. It may mean taking an online course, a finance course, a marketing course, whatever, continuing education to become better. Because a lot of college kids will ask me, how do you get ahead? How do you have a great career, Lee, like you did? I said, number one, be better than everybody else. Every day, think about 10 people doing the job you do. Make sure you're the best one. You have the best attitude. You arrive on time. You do your job. You raise your hand when the boss needs somebody to do something. The quality of your work's always great. You're reliable. You're credible. You keep your promises. You'll get ahead because you will stick out like a sore thumb. And that's the name of the game. Be better than everybody else. And people soon forgot that I didn't have a degree because I was so reliable and had such a good attitude, and I kept learning the business. I would say my education started after I didn't go to college, because I finally figured out if I don't start learning, I'm not going to have a very good life here. And I wouldn't recommend to any student not to finish college, but because these days you can't even get an interview without a degree, probably. You can't get in the front door. I was lucky back in those days. You could get ahead and move ahead, and probably you could today, but it's a lot harder. And there's no question. But your best friend will be your performance. If you perform, people will not forget that. And so technical, become better at whatever you do. Number two, management, become a better manager. That's why I wrote the book, Time Management Magic, how to get organized, how to keep on track. Most people don't get good training in how to organize themselves and setting priorities. They don't get it in high school. They don't get it in college very well. And then they get out in the world and boy, it comes at you from 20 different directions, as you know. You get married, then you have kids, and then you got work to do, and your boss is chasing you around, and your mother-in-law is coming in Sunday, and you got to go to a soccer game. I mean, the anxiety in America from everything coming so fast these days is you really got to learn how to manage your time and your day planner. You got to really use it as an effective weapon for keeping you sane and keeping you on track. And I've been teaching time management for 35 years now, because this is the one. If you don't get this one right, it doesn't matter what you know. If you can't get things done and you're unreliable and you fall on the wayside, you don't get your work in on time. And I'm sure you got students like that sometimes. They just can't quite get it together because they have time to go play around, but they don't have time to do their work. And therefore, they end up with different issues. So be a better manager. Third thing is technological competence. You got to really stay up with technology these days. It's changing so fast, so rapidly. How to put it in your business, how to put it in your personal life. People that don't keep up and stay up, they're going to become a little irrelevant because the pace. In another 5 years, everything's going to be pushed through technology like it already is. And I think we're getting a taste of that now in this virus time. We're all learning, hey, you better learn how to do this stuff, because I'm sure a lot of people are learning a lot about communicating online these days. I've talked to student groups almost every day this week, and students don't usually have a problem. Sometimes it's the older people that know, what is this? How do you get on there? So it's not always easy because depending on how old you are, but I tell people, if you can't keep up, get somebody to train you. Go to a class, find a student to tutor you on how to use all this stuff, because you're going to become irrelevant if you don't. People are not going to pay attention to you. So technological competence is really a big deal these days. And it is in business, for marketing, for keeping in touch with your guests, for supply chain, for inventory, for everything. And then last, leadership. How are you going to be that kind of leader? Leadership competence, that kind of leader that even though you're tough, you're hard, you push people hard, you have high standards, people wake up in the morning and they're still glad they work for you because they trust you, because you treat them right, you push them hard, they learn, they become better. All those things that we see in leaders that we like to work with is they're not soft, but they have empathy and discipline. They have the discipline to do the hard things, push you, train you, develop you, and they have the empathy to try to understand how they can help you more and be better and to understand each one of their people. One of the downfalls in the hotel business and restaurant business is a lot of leaders don't know their people very well. They don't even know their last name sometimes. They don't know their aspirations. They don't know what they're trying to achieve. And unless people really know that you care about them, they're not going to care about you so much. Somebody told me, until you're sure that your people are sure you're committed to them, they're not going to be committed to you. And that's all the way down the line, in our business. That's why we focus on every Disney person. We want them all to feel like they matter and they're important and they have a role in taking care of the guest. And the manager's not going to be around. We need people doing their job because they want to, not because they have to. And if I'm respected, I probably do a better job. If I'm respected and you take care of me, you'll have less turnover. You'll have less theft. You'll have less attitude. You'll have so many good things happen when we feel like we are treated properly and respected. So I think that's a big one for students today, to learn that concept of, it'll help your marriage too, by the way. My wife said, if you love me, tell me. And I say, yeah, if you respect your people at work, tell them why, how great they are. And so those are the kinds of things that I focused on. I wrote 4 books about it. One's called Creating Magic. It's leadership strategies we use at Disney. There's 10 of them that your people might learn from. We have one on customer service, things you can do to provide better customer service that don't cost anything. Most service doesn't really cost that much. A lot of it's attitude, and a lot of it's being nice, and a lot of it's paying attention. And there's so many things you can do to take care of your customers that you don't have to spend a lot of money on. Certainly one best way to have good service, hire the right people. Second best way is to train them properly and then treat them right. Those things are what creates better service, better attitude. People are excited about coming to work in the morning. That translates to the guests. And so I think that's another way you think about it. And there's so many, I wrote one on career magic. I call it career magic, how to keep your career on track, because one thing that happens in all your students you need to really understand is it's not whether you're going to have an obstacle in your career, you are. It's just when does it show up and how do you handle it? I think a lot of people would say, oh, Lee Cockerell, he was executive vice president, he can talk, blah, blah, blah. They don't know what I went through. I've been fired, passed over, you name it. Obstacles are going to come. And really it is a lot about your attitude, about how you handle the obstacle, how you deal with it, how you overcome it, how you move on, and don't let it affect your attitude and your reputation, because all of us have been there. You're going to either have an obstacle at home, in your personal life, with family, and good leaders are people who are ready to know what they're going to do when it happens. And you may be wrong. It might be your fault. It might not. I mean, hey, I'm sure some of the times I got in trouble in my career, it was my fault. And then a couple of times I didn't think it was, but nobody cares. It can still affect you. And so don't give up and get back together. I think this whole issue about making sure you're getting better every day is one of the keys for the future, though. Are you going to be a lot better at the end of this year than you were at the beginning of this year? And how are you going to do that? Are you going to read more? Are you going to go to seminars more? Are you going to listen to podcasts more? How are you going to get new information in your brain so that you can take better action? Because when you know more, you think differently. When you think differently, you do differently. And make sure you're getting input all the time, because today everything changes. Marketing, I don't know how we see there's going to be so many ideas come out of this thing we're going through now with this virus, new ways to market and new ways to deliver and sell and upsell. I mean, God knows we're going to see a lot of books coming out about, whoa, why didn't we do that 10 years ago? It's because the only time people change, and the only reason they change, is either because of education or crisis. This is the only 2 reasons we change. Life's good until there's a crisis. Then you better figure it out when your business just went down 50%. And education can also be the other side of that. You can learn how to be ready to take care of things. And it's the same reason for divorces. You either get educated on how to get along, or you get a crisis and get a divorce. I mean, that's the only thing that changes people. And I think it's hard for people to realize that. I got fired once. That was a crisis. I had no job, no money. I had a 2-year-old and a Volkswagen and no job. And I rethought about some of the things I'd done in that job and how I could have done them better, and I got passed over for a big promotion once at Marriott. And I would say that was 60% my fault. I was too rough. I was too pushy. I was trying to straighten out the people above me. That was so I learned because frankly, I hate to say it, but you got to learn to play the game a little bit too. I mean, you're in education, you know that. Education, every big organization, I don't care whether it's education, biggest corporations, even small ones, family businesses, there's politics. You got to play the game, and you got to get the job done. You got to do both. Keep everybody. How do you keep it on balance? And you learn through education, exposure, and experience how to become a better manager and a better leader. And that's why I tell your students, make sure they get a lot of good experience, get different kinds of jobs, get as much exposure as they can to other people, other ways of thinking. I mean, because education's not enough. You need the exposure and experience. Just think about all the things you've learned through experience and through exposure to things you never had been exposed to before. It's amazing. What I know now and what I knew when I was 20 are a pretty big difference. And you're never as good as you think you are. You never know as much as you think you do. And that's why I read a lot. And every time I pick up a new book and I'm reading about leadership or management or customer service, or I'm thinking, why didn't I know that 20 years ago? I mean, it's not new. It was there. I just didn't know. And you got to, I think curiosity is a big deal. You got to really want to get smarter, get better, hang around people who got their act together. Be careful about hanging around negative people, because they'll drag you into the dirt and drag you into. That's why we're all worried about who our kids hang out with, that they don't get into trouble by being with the wrong kid in the neighborhood and those associations. So, but I would say just generally, if you think about every day you want to get better, you think about hiring great people, you think about training not only your people but yourself. I would say in your day planner, all of us should have some training for our people who work for us and the people that, and for ourselves. How am I going to train myself? Because people know whether you know what you're doing or not. I mean, everybody knows. I mean, in corporate life, we all know. A lot of us had the boss, didn't have a clue what he was doing, but everybody acted like he did. But we know, everybody knows. And so you got to really take responsibility for your own development, your own reputation, doing the right thing, honesty, integrity. Because those things too, people know who's not being right. People know who's screwing around. Everybody knows. They don't. And with the internet today, you got to really be careful what you say and do, because it'll come back and bite you so hard. We see it every day. So behavior is a big part of success. It's not just knowledge. It's not just a college degree. It's do you have that right behavior? Do people want to work with you because you care about them and you're taking care of them and you're teaching them and you're training them? And we've all had those bosses where we did something great and we never hear about it. Nobody gives us any appreciation, any recognition, any encouragement. And I think those are the simpler things that we need to talk about in college and education and high school, because most people don't get in trouble for not being able to know how to do their job or doing it. They get in trouble because they make stupid mistakes, telling inappropriate jokes, saying inappropriate things, lying, cheating, doing something inappropriate, getting caught. 99% of the people know what to do. They just don't always do it the right way. And the main thing you get in trouble with is making a big mistake about judgment, or about somebody asking you to do something that's not legal, but you just do it this once. And you got to be ready for that. I tell people all the time, you got to know what you stand for and what you don't stand for. So when it comes to your face, you know how to deal with it. You know right away to say, no, I'm not going to do that. And I think that's a big there's a lot of pressure today. If your boss says, I'll promote you if you do this, it's not really legal, but just take care of it for me. And if you go down that path, it'll be, in a few years, you'll be down another path and another path. And then one day you'll make the big mistake. And you got to be careful. I mean, hopefully most people have good values. They are honest, integrity. Those things really matter in leadership, because people want to trust you. People look up to you. I mean, literally. I mean, I think about all the time as my son was growing up, making sure I didn't disappoint him over some kind of value or principles, and the same in your job. I mean, you know that. Same thing. People are watching you, and you've got a reputation, and you get tested all the time, even when we don't know we're being tested. People are watching us, and those are the kind of things I think about a lot. So I work trying to figure out better leadership strategies, how to deal with people with empathy and discipline, how to be better organized, how to do what I say I'm going to do so that you trust me. And I'm always trying to think about new ways to take care of the customer, because there's so much competition today that may be the only thing that can set you aside. You know, people who can individualize and personalize for the customer is going to win.
Mm-hmm.
People want to be taken care of. You know, whether it's your dry cleaners or where you get gasoline or a grocery store, it's those people that they make it personal, and they want to make sure you have a good experience. And then we know those places we go where they don't really care. And we always go back where people, I mean, we're humans. We go back to where people love us, you
Mm-hmm.
know. And I never forget that. Um, I was a good waiter. I made a lot of money as a waiter because I just did it. I took care of everybody. If they wanted ketchup poured on their head, I'll be happy to pour it on their head. Whatever you want, you know. And one guy told me once he was a bellman in Philadelphia. He made more money than anybody. And I said, how do you do that? He said, because when the car pulls up in the porte cochere, I'm there. When the trunk opens, I get my hands on the bag. And when I got the bag, they give me money when I carry it to their room. And he also had jumper cables. He had all kinds of things. He could take care of anybody with any problem they had, and he just made money. And,
Yeah.
then there are other bellmen standing over in the corner looking out the window. And you know, take care of people. They'll take care of you. That's how you make money. Everybody should be a waiter, actually, because that's where you learn. If you produce, you make money. You don't, you don't. And we made sure my son was a waiter when he was growing up. Our grandchildren have all been waiters and waitresses as they got older. And it's a good lesson. It's the person you least expect will leave you $100 sometime. And the person who you think is going to leave you $100 leaves you nothing. So your only way is to serve, take care of people, and in the long run, you'll win. Just take care of people. Don't worry about what they're going to give you. Just think about serving. When you serve, you win. Short term, long term, and a lot of people have a bad experience. They take care of somebody and they don't get anything, and then they get a bad attitude, and then they treat everybody the rest of the day badly, and that's about the worst thing you can do. So control your emotions and just be professional. You know, to me, professional mean people say, don't you really get upset sometimes with the customer? I said, I might, but they're never going to know it because me getting upset with them is not going to help my tips. It's not going to, you know, there's no upside to pissing off a customer. There's no upside. Yeah. There's no upside to annoying your wife. There's no upside. Just don't do it. It's not worth it. And a lot of people get in trouble because they want to be defensive. They want to win an argument with the customer. They want to be right. Ego gets in the way. Pride. Hey, when you're in the service business, you got to take the beatings. Mm-hmm. That's what we do. You know, we serve. And if you serve everybody great, you're going to have a great operation. And if you start getting annoying and the waiters and waitresses and managers see you not treating the customer right, they'll start doing that. And this role modeling to me is one of the strongest things in the world that we all got to pay attention to. It's a big deal at Disney. You know, everybody picks up paper. Everybody is pleasant. Everybody, you know, we say you don't have to be happy to work at Disney. You got to act happy for 8 hours. That's what you do. Yeah. You know, happiness is a personal problem, but professionals don't bring the unhappiness to work. And you've got to figure it out how to do it. And sometimes your home life is not right, so you got an attitude, but you got to really work on understanding that when you get out of your car in the morning at work, you got to go into your professional attitude and get through the day. And when you walk out, people say, you know, he's always got a right attitude. He always takes care of things. Just, you know, and that's different. And that'll take you probably further than anything in life, is being that kind of person, because people love to work with that kind of person. And customers and other people are going to tell your boss how great you are.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think we're seeing, I think one thing that's coming out of the situation that we're in is I think now we are seeing the people who are the essential workers, who are serving others.
That's for sure.
And I think that's really good. One, for our students, because a lot of our students, whether they're hospitality or sport focused, they enter into positions of kind of that frontline staff. And so I think people are now hopefully getting a better appreciation for what it means to be frontline staff,
Yeah.
the effort that they go through for frontline staff or as frontline staff. And then one thing that I think could possibly come out of this is that just greater appreciation, and
Yeah.
the way that people look at someone who serves your food, someone who takes your ticket when you're on an airline, someone who's checks you into a hotel. Like those are things that hopefully will come from this, right?
Absolutely. And I think it's already starting to happen. It woke up a lot of people, every day. My wife, UPS guy, we left him a little gift on the front porch, and said, thanks so much for working. And our postman and the yard people went out and
Yep.
gave them something this week. And they showed up and they're doing their job. And I was just thinking the grocery stores, God bless them. I mean, so I think, yeah, if we can learn anything from this, is everybody matters. Be nice to people. Conrad Hilton said the definition of hospitality is serving strangers. That's what we do. We serve strangers, and we serve them from the heart and because we want to. You can't serve people unless you want to. I can't make you serve and have that right attitude. But if you hire the right people that have it in them already, and let me tell you, the best satisfaction you ever get in your life is when people say 5 years later, 10 years later, you hear from and they say, thank you, sir.
Yep.
You taught me a lot. That time you had to sit down and straighten me out, I appreciate it. I'm in a great job today. I didn't like it the day you talked to me, but I like it now, and I learned from that. And that's the biggest payoff I get in my life today is when people call me up and say, Lee, thanks so much for doing that, or thanks for being available, or thanks for having that talk with me about my attitude. I didn't like you the day you did it, but today I now realize. And it's a big turn on to get appreciation. I mean, we all want to be loved. People ask me why I do this speaking. What? They said, you're retired. Why don't you just go lay on the couch? And I said, because I'm insecure and people clap. I like it. I like it when they clap. When I play golf, nobody claps. So I quit doing things so I like it. It's my hobby is, God, I love it when people love me. So, which we all do.
Yeah.
And
very much.
And certainly when you see people that got a bad attitude, introverted, not happy in life, they miss some love somewhere, probably. I mean, and you can turn those people around by making them know they are somebody. Because a lot of people are just little damaged goods, just need a little repair. A little love goes a long way. A little appreciation goes a long way. And over time, it can build you up. And I'm sure you've seen that. I've seen people in our business that are just come in totally a wreck. They've been in trouble their whole life, and they come to Disney and they get treated right. They get focused on, and 5 years later, they're a manager because their whole attitude changed, turned around because they're in this place where they feel safe. The only thing that matters at Disney is performance. We don't care where you're from, what color you are, what background, what sexual orientation. We care about nothing except performance. And if you perform, you get ahead. And that's a good way to think about life. I don't care if you speak English or not. If you can do the job, God bless you. And I don't care what religion you practice. It's none of my business. And just do your job, and we'll get you moving up. And if we could all just, when you just focus on performance, that keeps you so busy you don't need to worry about anything else. Because we have enough performance problems too from people who are damaged goods that we need to be working on them emotionally and helping them. That pat on the back like we do our kids. That's anytime your kid does something good, you say, great job. Because you're trying to develop that child you're going to want them to be like when they're 25.
Yep.
But that's and we need to do that at work too. It's the same. It'll work the same. You'll have less turnover. You'll have everything gets better when you treat people right. And so we all got a lot of work to do on not judging people too early about what they're capable of, especially when you're 18, 19, 20, 21 years old. you can be 10 times better in 5 years and not even realize it. And for me, if you'd have told me I was going to be the head of Disney World operations when I was 20, I would have said, you're the craziest person that ever lived. I had no idea what my potential was. I didn't even know I had potential. All I did is one simple thing: have a good attitude and do a good job every day, and somebody will notice you. And so it's probably simpler than we like to think about. Uh, and my granddaughter's graduating from University of Colorado in May 7th. Of course, they're not having a graduation, and she's all, getting stirred up about finding a job and all. And I told her, like I told my son when he got out of college, take any job in a good company. I don't care if it's cleaning the bathrooms. Be the best bathroom cleaner there ever was. In 6 months, you'll get promoted. Then be the best of that, the best of that.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't. And frankly, you'll learn the business instead of going in too high. So a lot of kids are going to have to make that decision. And I said, half the time, the problem is the parents don't want you to, oh, I just spent 4 years paying for my kids' education, and now you going to tell me you're a hostess at a restaurant for $12 an hour? Well, I told my son, I don't care about that. If you learn the business, nobody can take that away from you.
Yep.
So take those early jobs. Take any job. Go in there and be the best whatever. And you got 50 years after you graduate to make your mark on the world.
Yep.
And a good 5 years of experience will pay off dramatically. And but as parents they'll want to tell their neighbor, oh, what's your daughter doing? Well, she's, I said, I tell kids today, don't do what your parents want. Do what you want. Yeah. I know, because parents have ulterior motives here. My mother had to tell everybody I was a private in the Army when my brother was an orthopedic surgeon because I flunked out of college. She didn't like that, but that's the way it was. And I did fine, so, and some parents are really tougher on that than others. And it's kind of an embarrassment, but I would say go do your thing. Go do something you love. Don't hang in a job you don't like. I was lucky. I got in the hotel business. I loved it. And on balance, it was great. Or there were tough days, but on balance, it was great. And, my mother wanted me to be a dentist. I'd probably kill myself if I was a dentist. So anyway, I think your students, it's a good time. They're going to learn a lot, and I think it's more than 9/11. It's really, it's disappointing. Some of them are not going to get their graduation, but it's not the end. This won't be the worst thing that ever happened in their life. Yeah. And so we're having lots of Zoom meetings with our family, birthday parties, all kinds of things, and they get it. They understand. So you got to go through the fire sometimes to get stronger, and we're all going to get to go through the fire this time. And it's tragic. A number of people are dying in these times. Boy, this is when you really need discipline. Stay away, stay inside, do what you have to do. Don't be reckless. You got a child. You have children?
Yes. Yeah, 2.
So that's your main responsibility.
Yep.
There's no higher leadership job than being a mom or dad. And
very true.
They're watching you right now to make sure you and your wife get along. So anyway, any other things you want to talk about? Or
so I have a few about, and this could be any capacity you had with the company. Orlando, when you were in Paris, if you pulled out one of your favorites, not necessarily, doesn't have to be your favorite situation, but what was a favorite memory you had working with the company?
Yeah, I think people ask me the best thing I liked. I'm going to tell you, 9/11 was the proudest day I had because we had prepared. We do a lot of simulations getting ready for crisis. Anything can happen. And the day that happened, we had our command center open 30 minutes. We had everybody evacuated from the park in 90 minutes back into their hotels. We took care of people. We gave them free phone calls, free rooms if they didn't have. Nobody could leave. A lot of them didn't have any credit left, so we let them, we didn't charge them. All the cast members really stepped up and did their job just like we practiced. And at that point, there's nothing I could do. I was just hoping everybody did what they were trained to do, and they did. And that's pretty to see people stand up and be great leaders that day was amazing. And we had 75,000 people we had to evacuate in 90 minutes, and the buses were there. We got them on and moved them out and took care of people for days. And so sometimes in the worst situations when you see the best performance, and that was a good day. On the fun side, I like going out and being out in the park watching the guests and talking to guests because, the guests absolutely love Disney and they're paying a lot of money out of their pocket for it. So we've got either a higher standard that we've got to take care of them because they're saving up for sometimes 2, 3, 4 years to come down there. It's not expense account business. So we've got even a more, Marriott mainly was business people. So, okay, you might mess up occasionally, but this is a family with their 4-year-old and their daughter, and she wants to see Cinderella. And let me tell you, if you don't make kids happy, you don't make parents happy. And if dad's not happy, we're going to have a problem because his daughter didn't get to see Cinderella or Mickey or whatever she wanted to see. And I told all our staff, make those little kids happy, and then we'll have happy parents. Yep. Because that's all you want. That's why you want to see them happy. That's what I said. You spend your whole life. There's only 2 things you worry about with your kids: is safety and education. That's all you're going to worry about your whole life is their safety and their education. Even when you're 90 and they're 70, this is going to be. I always tell you, parents worry about their kids their whole life. Kids don't worry about us so much, but it's and it worked. Making sure people are safe, they have a good environment, they're treated right, and but that was the fun at Disney's, being out in the parks, not up in the office doing all that stuff you have to do in the office.
Yeah, our sons are 5 and 3, and this past September we were lucky enough to be down there, and went with one set of the grandparents, and we for me it was fun seeing them kind of see and react to the things that I always liked. One of my favorite characters in Disney was is Figment from the Imagination Pavilion, and getting on that ride, and I know the ride is very vastly different from what it used to be, but getting on that ride, seeing their reactions to that, and then playing in the Image Works afterwards. And while we were waiting, we were waiting to see Vanellope and Wreck-It Ralph. We were doing a meet and greet, and so I was in line for probably 25 minutes, and they were off playing, and just seeing them play, and that reminded me of when I was there in the 80s. Everything that I was doing. It was a really, really cool time. And our oldest son actually, he had his 5th birthday in the Magic Kingdom, so that was pretty special for him, pretty special for everybody. So it definitely is.
Well, and it's fun when 3 generations come together.
Yep.
Grandparents, that's really special, and we're getting a lot of that these days. Big parties of grandparents, parents, kids, and it's hard to find a place to have dinner with that many.
Yeah. So one thing that we try to talk about in the class, and actually right now, obviously remotely, but these few weeks that we're in right now, we're actually talking about the parks. We talk a lot about the parks in the United States. We don't spend as much time talking about the international parks, mainly because of just kind of my experiences with the parks in Florida. But you being in Paris, and you were there when the park opened, correct?
All right.
What the students are also right now, they're watching the Imagineering story. And so I believe this week is actually when they will watch, either this week or next week, is when they will watch the episode where they talked about Euro Disney becoming Disneyland Paris. Can you tell a little bit about your experience working and living in that environment?
Yeah, I mean, I would say right off, I would recommend any student that has the opportunity to work internationally, they should do it. It's an eye opener. It's I was illiterate because I didn't speak French, so I have an appreciation for people come to the U.S. that don't speak and write English. But we had to do everything in 5 languages, so we had to hire people on the front desk when we were staff. We had somebody from Spain, somebody from Germany, somebody from France, somebody that spoke English, and usually Spanish or Italian, because the guests come from everywhere and the language skills are different. So that was challenging. Most of the people in France at that time, it really didn't have a deep appreciation or understanding of what Disney was. The kids don't grow up there with Disney like they do here. So we had a lot of I would say a lot of people didn't appreciate it.
Mm-hmm.
And it took a while. The culture, we didn't pay enough attention to the culture, so we had the wrong food on the menus, and we didn't serve wine in the park, which in France you've got to have wine wherever people are eating, and so I would say one of the mistakes is we didn't pay as much attention to the culture as we should have, which we did when we went to China and Hong Kong. Mm-hmm. So making sure that we were totally focused on what Chinese people want and not what Americans are going to shove down your throat. And so the attitude a little different there. The French are a little less disciplined about being told what to do. And so we had issues like that about grooming guidelines, shaving, those kinds of things that we had to deal with. And plus we were losing money. We lost $1 million a day first year. Mm-hmm. And for years out, probably lost a couple $1 billion over the first 25 years. And so that was extra pressure, extra stress on everybody. Everything's highly unionized there. If you overhire, you can't get rid of people because they're on contract. You'll have to pay them maybe for 3, 4, 5, 6 months if you let them go. We were 2,000 people overstaffed the first summer. You can talk about the payroll was like out of control. And so it was, I would say, the highest pressure job I ever had. Mm-hmm. We thought everything was going to be great, and then the day you open, it's not. I mean, that's when you really got to pull up your attitude, because it was so disappointing that, I mean, it just wasn't working. And so I would say always pay attention to the customer. You don't change France, you don't change China, you adapt. Mm-hmm. And I think students working with you know they're going to get the same thing happen to them if they decide to go work in New York or mm-hmm. LA or Alabama. You got to adapt. I mean, it's different, even in the U.S. It's not going to be like it was where you were. Mm-hmm. And you go to certain parts of the country, the food is totally different. Everything is different. And so that's what I would say I pay more attention today is to the culture I'm dealing with, where I am. Even today, when I go back to Oklahoma, it's different than when I live in Orlando. Yeah. So I think respect for the culture is really a big deal, no matter where you go to work. Or it could be the company. The culture at Marriott or the culture at Hyatt or Hilton or Holiday Inn, or there's a culture there. Mm-hmm. And you better learn what it is, because fighting the culture is not very productive. Yeah. Yeah. So that was kind of how we thought about it. Japan does a fabulous job. It's all run by the Japanese. I mean, it's unbelievable. Everything's perfect. I mean, it's spotless. Yeah. It's unbelievable. And it's because the Japanese run it. And 90% of the guests in Japan are Japanese. Mm-hmm. And in China, most are Chinese. I asked a Japanese guy what his favorite food once was. He was over here in Orlando. He looked at me like I was crazy. He looked at me and said, Japanese. I said, oh, okay. In America, I say, what's your favorite food? You might tell me Italian, Japanese, steakhouse, anything. But these other countries, most important food in China's Chinese food.
Hmm.
In Japan, it's Japanese food. In Germany, it's German food. And sometimes we forget that we're different. We're
Yeah.
different.
Yeah.
I laughed one time. I said, "Do you know how many Japanese people there are in Japan? It's amazing when you land. Everybody's Japanese. You land in America, you don't know what people are." But it's the first time I went, I wrote my wife. I said, "You can't believe how many Japanese people are here." She said, "Of course there is." I was, because I'd never been there. I was just like,
Yeah.
everybody.
Yeah. Two more questions, and you hit on this one when you talked about going out into the parks and seeing people and having fun and seeing how kids reacted. Um, when you were in your latest position, senior vice president over operations, how how would you explain, or how did you experience kind of the excitement of not being frontline staff? So you are not there interacting daily with customers, um, but knowing that the things that you helped implement, the projects you helped work on, the things that you helped train people with, was helping give people that special experience. How did you experience kind of the pride on your end?
Well, I often went into the parks with my Bermuda shorts and hat on and my grandkids. People don't see you, they don't know who. I experienced the park frequently as a guest, just so I stood in line and my grandkids gave me feedback on the kids' meals and the water fountain and the bathrooms and my the upside for me was always when I saw it being done the way we had asked for it to be done,
Hmm.
the way people have been trained, seeing somebody go out of their way to take care of a customer, uh, walking him down to the bathroom or showing, those kinds of things. For me, who was putting in policies, procedures, operating guidelines, and rules, to see those being actually happening is the best feeling
Yeah.
because we have 77,000 people in Orlando now working. And when I was there, I had 40,000. And that's something to get 40,000 people executing the
Hmm.
same. Everybody being nice to the guest, everybody going out of their way, everybody smiling. That's when you go like, wow, that's a hit show, like on Broadway. Every performance is. So that was my measurement of effectiveness. That
Yeah.
we certainly must be hiring, training, and treating people right, or they couldn't do that all day long because it's hot and it's hard work, and the guests can be unreasonable. And but to see it happen,
Yeah.
that's when you smile and go, "Yeah, got it."
Yeah.
It'll be like you are when your kids are grown up and they're perfect. You're going to go, "Yes." All the things you had to do to make sure that day happened.
Yeah.
You have
Um,
those tough training days and those tough, yeah.
yeah.
But yeah,
That reminds me of you said you would go into the parks and get stand in lines and get feedback from your grandkids. That reminds me of what they said Walt used to have the people working at WED then do, go out in the parks and talk to the customers, because that's where you get your best feedback, and that's how a lot of times it's great to have surveys and it's great to ask questions, but seeing somebody and interacting with them in person, you're going to get different responses a lot of times, and you're going to get their real feelings about things, right?
I wrote a document. I'll send it to you if you want it. And I sent it to my granddaughter the other day in college. And it's a document I developed when I was at Disney. It's called Disney Great Leader Strategies. And there are 10 strategies. And the first strategy is remember everyone is important.
Hmm.
But I asked her to read it and then give me what she learned from reading this document. And the two she liked most was number one, which was remember everyone's important. And the other one that struck her is one titled Learn the Truth.
Yeah.
And she called me up and said, that I liked a lot, because she said, I worked in the canteen at college. And if our managers had just worked an hour or two on the grill with us, they would have changed 10 things on how to do it.
Yep.
They just didn't know. They didn't know the truth. And boy, that struck her about you can't lead if you don't. Somebody
Yeah.
wrote a book, you can't lead with your feet on the desk.
Yep.
And that for her, and she's already said that to one of her instructors. And she told one of her instructors how much she appreciated the hard work she does, and blah, blah, blah. And the lady said, "That's the first time anybody ever said that to me." She said, "Well, my grandfather wrote a piece on this," and she said, "Well, I want to read that, so I'll send it to you." And it's like, yeah, duh. If you don't know the truth,
you don't know where to
go. Kids, so you're going to really have to work hard to know the truth when they're 14, 15, 16. Just always remember everything you did your mother doesn't know about. So that'll terrify you. Yeah. But it's that's it. There's some certain things you got to do on purpose, and on purpose you got to know the truth.
Yeah.
You've got to be around, checking, talking to people, have a good relationship with them so they'll tell you the truth, so that you can make good decisions and get it fixed. Yeah. And I'd say the average boss out in the world today doesn't really, I'm not sure they know what's going on really deep down.
Yeah.
Like you say, reading a book about Disney and going out there and standing in line at 95 degrees is totally different.
Yeah.
It was different than when I looked out the window of my office, which was air conditioned, and you get out there.
Yeah.
And you can take the hits. I always tell people, reading about India and going there, that's two big different things.
Yeah.
So get out and learn the truth.
Yeah, thank you. And
your students have the humility to do that and to go out and find out what's going on and talk to people and listen and pay attention. They'll be better leaders. They'll run a better business. Ask a lot of questions. Why do we do this? Why do we do that? How much does that cost? How much of these do we waste every day? Boom.
Yeah.
People will help you.
Yeah. Yeah, I would love to see that too. I would love to read over that. Thank you. The last thing, sort of because of what we're going through right now, and because of what the parks around the world are going through, not asking what you think will, like what the decision makers are doing right now or anything, but I think it would be interesting to get your perspective on when it is safe again for the parks to open, for people to travel and people to attend the parks. What would your expectations be as far as kind of the customer service aspect of it, or how do you think people's experiences will be after this? Is it going to change, or what do you think the company would do?
Yeah, I believe, here's what I've been through. I'm old. I've been through a lot of these things. Americans have a short memory. This will fade pretty quick. The way when things are back opening again. I remember when people wouldn't fly and they wouldn't do this and do that after 9/11. I mean, that didn't last very long. And people have a short memory. I think we'll get back to normal. I think, there'll be indicators we'll get from our guests about something, security or, even hand washing or sanitation or special requests from people who might ask that something be handled differently. And those are things you just have to figure out as you go. It's like today we have security at all the parks. You have to go through, be scanned. We didn't do any of that before. We did it kind of half-assed for a while, and then guests want it. They want it, and we have 1,300 security people at Disney now. Undercover, they're everywhere.
Yeah.
When you get out of your car, somebody's probably watching what you're taking out of the trunk. It's the safest zip code in America. And we keep adding little things here and there and a little more safety and a little this. And every time we figure out another way, we try to do it before anything happens. So, there's a lot of anticipation around safety, not reflection of what we should have done. It's what should we do now before it happens. And I'm sure with your boys, there's a lot of anticipation of how do you make your house safer and how they don't get and where they go and who they're with, and anticipation, thinking. Okay, I told a guy one day, if you have a daughter and she's 14, what can you anticipate? It's scary. and you make sure you keep talking to her and teaching her so things don't happen. So there'll be I don't know what I think it's hard to say right now, uh, you know, but I imagine you and I ought to talk down the road because people get back to normal
Hmm.
faster in America than any place I've ever been in my life. They just like, I don't know why we have such a short memory. I
Hmm.
mean, it's like, okay, everything's fine now. Let's get back to it. And let me tell you what, the demand is going to heat up because people are like dying to go
Hmm.
back on vacation and be with their families and get out of the house. And it won't only be Disney; it'll be the airline. I mean,
Yeah.
people are going to get back to normal. There'll be certain people that'll be more reserved about it and maybe more concerned, as after any crisis, people are. Insecurity, anxiety, but I think overall it'll probably come roaring back.
Yeah. I would. I would imagine. Um, I would imagine so. At least something similar to that. Something close to that.
Yeah,
Well, thank you very much, Lee, for talking with us.
yeah. I'll send
Um,
you some things for this guy for everybody, and let me know if we can help you anymore anytime.
yeah. Thank you
Train
very
those
much.
students. We need them.
Yes. Thank you very much.